All right. This is Namo Kofi Joe. This is the roof is on fire. We don't need no water. Let that motherfucker burn. Man, it's been one. It's been one. It's August. It's Black August. We celebrating the lives, the ancestors, our great uh, freedom fighters, all of those liberators who have passed on, who we live through them in the work that we do. And so this month is a very important and special month for the liberation of our people. When we think back on all of the struggles that either started or began or ended up during this period of time, the past is our present. We need to make sure that we realize that every time we speak to one another, that we are speaking through those ancestors who have led us this far, who are carrying us further, who remain in our psyche throughout this whole period of time to make sure that we inherit their lives and we transform our lives into theirs. So my people, this is AfricaOnTheMove.com. That's where you can go to catch all my socials. You can catch all of my deliberations, all of my criticisms, all of my controversial remarks. Uh, you can reach me on all the social medias through AfricaOnTheMove.com. You are listening to The Roof is on Fire. We don't need no water. Let that motherfucker burn. Burn, baby, burn. And no better time than the present than to be thinking about the days of our lives and our people than in Black August and our ancestors who are here and who are never leaving us, who are constantly present. And we are stepping into their shoes and walking forward, making sure that we one day are able to be called an ancestor and called up for our people's struggle in the near future. So let me get started on a little geopolitical news. As we know, that DC, Washington, DC has been overrun, and that we have a made up, make believe situation that goes on in Washington, D.C., like it's not going on anywhere else in the world or anywhere else in the United States. This is the most corrupt nation on the face of the earth. For the last 250 years, this country has created more havoc and harm than anything that has been peaceful or really revolutionary. And we need to be made clear that by the attempts of this administration and this government to execute orders that are chasing down people that are trying to have a living wage in this society and do for their own and their family, and being created as criminals and being misunderstood as criminals and being made to believe that their uh, deportation is somehow going to help this country from reaching collapse. That is far from the truth, and we cannot be a part of that. What we really don't focus on enough is Gaza, the atrocities that are going on in Israel in the namesake of Zionism, uh, just not being held to the same standard in this world as anything else that is going on. And I really want to make that clear that we are living in a world of basically a deep fake. We have people who I don't even think consider the truth and work on an idea that their truth lies somewhat in how well they can deceive others and make others believe the nonsense that they've created as being, you know, something other than bullshit. But that's just my own interpretation. I could be wrong. You can read a book, you can find out if I'm mistaken. You can bring that book to my attention, and maybe I can be corrected. And I hope I can be corrected. But in actuality, I don't think I can. If the case is the way it is, we are in trouble. We are in deep trouble. not only here but around the world, by the employer class. The group of people who consider themselves helping us by giving us a wage. And really, that wage is nothing but a disguise of a whip, and that whip is something that's being constantly being used against us and keeping our prices down. I mean, keeping our wages down, making sure that we can't afford a decent living, can't afford to live anywhere in this world and feel comfortable without a group of people who consider themselves, rich enough to buy cities, to hold weddings, drive floating in on a $500 million boat, while the average worker for that company can't even pay rent, and are struggling to pay rent, or I need two people in the household to pay rent, you know, constantly, going on a round and round on a merry-go-round, trying to get that golden ring, and get off that merry-go-round and try to live like them is, their ultimate, um, accomplishment or dream for us in the world today. But Gaza is an atrocity in living color in front of us. This is in 1942. This is in 1945. What had happened to the Jewish people during World War II has been documented. It's been clear. You would think that a group of people who had went through such atrocities could not turn around and perform that same type of atrocity on other people, especially people's land that they've stolen, people's land that they do not belong to them, the land that they came in 1948 and decided that this is their land from some biblical, historical, not historical, some biblical, idea that they feel they can materialize on a land from basically a fictional book, and not being able to prove anything other than that there's millions of people that they follow them in their belief, and that is a belief that's supposed to be of some kind of humanity and honor and grace, but in actuality it's just another book that is formulated to oppress and exploit people. And it's not comfortable. We shouldn't feel comfortable in the world that we're living in, with the leadership that we have, and that leadership is bankrupt. They're beyond reasoning with. There's no chance to explain something that should seem practical and reasonable to the average individual. But these groups of people tend to have their own mindset already laid out, already made up, that is entrenched, and it's hard for anyone to make any sense to them other than the sense of dollars. The idea of saving people's lives is just not in their consciousness. They're not in consideration of that. The lives of mothers, the lives of children, the lives of people that are being lost are just a number on a sheet of paper that they can easily rip up and destroy, and allow that they just did not survive this Holocaust. And I refuse to allow for one day to pass in my life and not acknowledge that, and not acknowledge that there needs to be some serious reclamation in this world. The land that I'm on right now, was stolen land. Okay, the ancestors that I raised to the ceiling, I raised to the roof, that are burning the roof off of this thing, are our ancestors who have, for over millenniums, have knew the high truths, have knew the sacredness of insurgency, and that we as a people have always fought for the right of people's lives, for the rights of people's balance, for the rights of people's justice. And I will not go a day without remembering that and honoring that. We are a chosen people, chosen by the ancestors. If we do not follow our ancestors, we are not following anyone. There is nobody present today that can hold a candle to the ideals of our ancestors. And we should never forget that our true roots are restored in Africa or returned to Africa, that are built in Africa. And everywhere we go on this planet, whether we're on the continent or in the diaspora, we bring that forth. We bring that with us. We carry that not only through our own lives, but through the lives of our children. So in Black August, let's not forget names like Ida B. Wells, like Harriet Tubman, like Jonathan Jackson, George Jackson. Let's not forget Gabriel Prosser, Nat Turner. Did I mention Ella Baker? Did I mention, who else can I mention that are the ancestors that I carry on with, that I carry forward, that stay with me throughout my life? My mother, my grandmother. These names will never be forgotten. They will always be remembered. And I'm sure you have your own, and I'm sure you must raise them up to the ceiling too, because if we don't, we will suffer even more and greater harm. Black August means a tremendous amount to me. If I go back and tell you about when I learned about it, it was late in my life. It wasn't early, but yet and still I was in the land. I was on the state. I was in the city. There was these ancestors at that time were formulating that amongst our people. And so I know that it runs deep. I know that it runs long and deep in my soul. And there's a lot that I could talk about today around these issues, but I'm going to try to move on a little bit, because today I'm also going to talk a lot about my craft and the work that you see behind me. I'm talking today about a little about what I call finishing touches. Okay, because these paintings are almost finished, they're almost completed, and but they need some little finishing touches. And when do you know that your work is finished? So that's what I'm going to get into a little bit later today. But I still want to get back to our material conditions and talk a little bit more about our ancestors. We, as African people around the world, have been inundated by Abrahamic religions, whether it be Islam, whether it be Christianity, whether it be Judaism. These Africans around the world have been forced to believe in gods, and basically gods, and messiahs, and prophets who have for so long guided us down the path that in actuality we gave to them. I mean, all of those Abrahamic religions came out of Africa. And there was Abraham himself, who was born of a Kemetic mother, who there's no mention of, who doesn't even talk about. But when we look at who we are traditionally as a people, we are a mother-centered group of people. We come from life. We spoke of life. We talked about life. It's not easy for me to forget my mother or my grandmother. It's not easy for me to forget the women that have been in my life, the mothers that have been in my life. All have played a part. Even those who have not had biological children still hold the power and the seeds of mothers, like we all do. So when we look about what type of material idea that we somewhat have had and still treasure, we have to remember the role of the mother in our lives, and the creator being a mother in our lives. And that we are not making one step forward without those words and, those words and actions by our mother. These are ideas. These are ideas that are entrenched, ingrained in us. But what we tend to do is we place a man in front of them. And by doing that, we not only create an environment around us that limits ourselves, but limits others. What we need to be able to do is to be able to just live in a world where we focus in on mothers. Women, especially African women, are the most oppressed. They are the most oppressed by their gender. They're most oppressed by their sex, and they're most oppressed by their age, of their race. So their race, their gender, and their class are the most important aspects of our lives as a people. Let me try to break that down a little bit. Class. A lot of people look at class and try to say caste. Well, caste is a certain class of people, or how you can break down different classes of people. But when I talk about class, I like to use it from an economic point of view rather than from a political and economic point of view, which might be considered caste in a system. I'm not 100% sure. But for me, we are in a class struggle. There's basically two classes of people. There's an upper class and there's a lower class. The upper class is a very small minority of people. The lower class is the majority of people, the masses of the people. The upper class tend to create a buffer zone between them and the lower class called the middle class. And these are those who are the class traders, basically. They're basically would do more good with working with the masses of the people, but choose to work alongside of the upper class, which is a minority of people. And they hold jobs that make sure that the masses of the people don't take power. And for their reward, they get uh, a minuscule amount of their wealth from the upper class, just enough to make them feel like they're not the lower class. And then you have groups of people that resides in them. You have those lawyers, you have those politicians, you have somewhat of the high-ranking military and police officers. Uh, Anyone who works in a role that is basically military defense, anybody that works at prisoners, guards, anybody that works in an area that will benefit the upper class in the long run is considered that middle class of people who are in the buffer zone. You have the entertainment class. Those are some of the ones who not only entertain the upper class, which probably most of them rarely do. Most of their job is to entertain the lower class and make the lower class feel like they got something. The athletes, the entertainers, all of these group of people will sell the lower class out for just a closer morsel or tidbit of the upper class. So first of all, that's where women are considered on the lowest end of the class structure. They are, because of paternalism or patriarchal societies, tend to decide who's in the upper class, who's in the lower class anyway. And women are exploited at a great more higher extent, and children, than men. That puts them in a lower class based on their economic status. And some of them do actually rise above that lower class. But the majority of women in the world, especially African women, are in the lower class and are exploited and oppressed based on their class. Secondly, we want to go to race. Race is considered probably, as much as people want to say it, it is a social construct. I was listening recently and someone saying that everything's a social construct, and I can kind of agree with that. I'm not in really in cahoots with whether it's is it or is not. I want to talk about racism. Now, racism is also something that is tied to class, but racism is because now that I'm in an upper class and mainly white, and those in the lower class who are mainly brown and black or yellow, what we got to consider is that there's a separation between these people, and you tend to want to be on the superiority side, which would mean that you're white in racism, or you want to be considered in the inferior class as far as black or brown or Asian or yellow, I guess, considered not Asian, but in the uh, inferior class. And clearly it's unequal because I already mentioned that the upper class is in the minority. The white people in the world are in the minority. This global south is in the majority. So racism plays a big role in how we determine who gets wealth, who determines what wealth is, who determines the distribution of wealth. And then that also plays a role in how we treat women. Women are treated based on their race, just like everyone else. So now you have only a economic exploitation. Now you have a exploitation and oppression based on color, whether you're dark or brown or yellow skin, and whether you're white or pale or white person. There is a total decision making being made in this world, institutionalized power structure that bases its knowledge off of what color your skin is. Okay, so now we're going to move to probably the most critical of them all, which is sex. We've already mentioned sex in the economic sense. We mentioned sex in the racial sense, but now we're going to talk about sexism, which is probably at the core of all of this. And the core of this is that as a man, there's a certain amount of privilege that I gain. There's a certain amount of, structural authority that I have. The the changes to that have happened, but not at a rate that has brought down the inequality. There's no equity. There's no equality. There's a structure that is in place where men are dominant over women. That is a structural patriarchal idea that not only as a man is supported, but is also supported by women. And when women try to come up against this patriarchal structure and system, they are sometimes met with violence and with an extreme amount of violence that is meant to keep them in their place, to make them feel that their inferiority is due to their sex and that my superiority is due to my maleness or my male toxicity level. So we live in a world where women are treated what's called a triple oppression. All of these oppressions have stemmed from the idea that a mother is not supreme. Mother is somehow behind a man. It's very easy for you to look at the idea of Abraham as being a son of God, but not look at Abraham's mother who bore her son in traditional African belief systems. And you don't have to take my word for it. You can look it up. The idea of mother is supreme. The idea of the creator as mother is supreme. The idea that our ancestors have always looked to our mothers as the greatest source of our knowledge. If you take that little nid tidbit of knowledge and expound upon it based on everything else you know in this world, I guarantee you there will always be a negative pointing toward the mother and somehow another a positive around the man, which in actuality is the most backward thought that you could have. But it's not only backward; it's the most prevalent. If that's the right word. Uh, uh, Belief system that we live under, whether it be right or wrong. It is wrong, but the idea of it being right is more prevalent. And that's what we have to be very careful of, and be careful of it in a way that we're walking through it. And then when it comes up to you and when it walks up next to you, how well are you going to be able to identify it, or how well are you going to be able to operate around it without it somehow backfiring on you, without it somehow coming back to haunt you? These are some of the very difficult and treacherous world that we live in. So I guarantee you that my understanding of this is based on wisdom. And wisdom is to know. It's not always to say what you know. It's just to know, okay? And when things come at you, you know what to do. You know which way direction you need to take. And I'm not here to dictate that. I'm here to impart some type of knowledge. Hopefully that knowledge is something that you'll inherit, and that you will also help you to become a more uh, thoughtful, ethical, and uh, prudent person in the world. All right. So yeah, for that's pretty much it on what I was trying to get into today. Um, I would also encourage you to look into Black August. You can Google it; it'll come up. It's a lot of information. It's important that we recognize it, just as important as any other event that goes on throughout the world. And I'm a little hot. We turned off that air conditioner, saved some money, and we gotta just adjust to it. We don't really need no air conditioning, and then the cost of air conditioning is going up through the roof, just like everything else. So let me get you into some of this work that I'm doing here today. Some of it you won't see what I'm working on, but I'll be talking through it. Okay. This painting that you can see directly behind me is called As, and it's based off of a record by Stevie Wonder. And it was something that I played when I was back in 1977 as a DJ over and over again. And I played it through. There's been other renditions of it, and none of them are like Stevie Wonder's, but they're still good. I mean, because it's the words, it's the sound, it's what is the music is made by that is so important. But in the song, it talks about dolphins flying and parrots living at sea, and that day turns into night and night turns into day. And I tried to capture that with an idea of this futuristic, or this speculation that I've always had about the way we'll be living in the future, which is in the IMO, and you can go to my website, you can see all that information. But in the middle of this picture, there's this spacecraft, and that spacecraft is like a flying world. It's just that big, it's one of the creations in this whole mega structure that I created, based on the ideas of mother, based on the ideas of life, on the ideas of creation. And and if you look at this picture and wonder what that object is, it's only because you haven't known any of the other works that I've done, and you only can look at this one kind of just fragment of that world inside of this painting. And but I'm gonna get into that a little more. The other one on the side here that you can probably partially see is called "Swimming in My Head," and that's pretty much all these paintings are pretty close to being finished. And then there's one here called uh, um, man, I can't even think of the name right now. It's gonna come to me, but oh, it's pollinate, and it's actually a spaceship coming out of the sky from a mothership over a landscape, and it's these daffodils, I think daisies that are in front of it, and in the front ground of the painting. And one of the things I want to talk about that painting, you won't see this painting, but one of the things I want to talk about that painting, it was a drawing that I did probably in the 80s, a long time ago. Matter of fact, I can show you the drawing. This is the drawing. Okay, can you see that? Okay, so this is the painting. You'll see the painting eventually. It'll come up on my website. But this drawing was done in the 80s, like 80s, early 80s. And I was going through my sketchbooks and I was coming up with this series of paintings. This having this craft show will be October 25th and 26th at the African American Museum. That's what's up on the little screen, uh, previewing this hour episode. But that's where all these paintings will be on display. So come on out if you can. The Saturday evening is from 7 to 10. And then the afternoon on Sunday will be from 12 to 5. I'm inviting a DJ for Saturday's event. I'll have a lot of poetry and well, hopefully both nights of the event, both nights and day of the event, and some vendors, along with other crafts people, other artists who chose to be a part of this event. But it's a great way for me to display the work that I'm doing, and these pieces will be in it. Okay, so I want you guys to consider it. Come on out. I know I'm talking to the air, but eventually maybe somebody might pick up on this and come on through. All right, so that's the intention, and that's the objective. And strategy is a little unclear, but I ain't worried about that. Okay, I gotta go. Okay, and I'm going for it. Okay, but yeah, so I'm gonna get into basically finishing up some of these paintings and talk to you about what it takes to finish a painting. Okay, and hopefully you'll hear me well enough. I might have to speak up a little bit because I am going to be moving away from the mic. All right, so am I getting a bore? I'm getting a little bore. So you must be able to hear a little bit of what I'm saying. I'm getting a few bars. All right, so I'm going to start with this one. You see here? And there's a lot of things, I should say not a lot, but there's a few things that I want to kind of clean up on this painting. This is supposed to be a portion of this person's brain being seen outside of his mind. Okay, so I'm trying to show his mind, what his thoughts are like in his head. And this is if you notice that there's a red, black, and green background, this African featured person. Uh, I think it's mainly a woman uh, features. That's really not. It's kind of androgynous. I'm not really so concerned about the gender of this person. You can take it one way you want to. Uh, the we're working on right now is just making this dream effect. Okay, this kind of outlining the. Maybe I want to do it in front of you, so I can do this like this. So you notice I got a brush, got some little bit of white paint left in this thing, and so I want to make sure that I have some white paint. Not a lot on the brush, just a little bit. And you see, I've already started kind of outlining where I want the dreamy, cloudy kind of effect to appear above this person's head. But I also don't feel that it's as pronounced as I want it to be. So I gave it a kind of a first coat, and you notice that it's kind of lightly around there. Now it's a time to really kind of bring it out, bring it out more. And I might have to use some black, if this doesn't work, because the dreams are kind of a state where they're brought out in the factualness of our lives, being that it's brought out during the unconscious. And since we're unconscious, there's really no need to have color. You can just imagine things through kind of a cloudy, black and white kind of phase. But in this paint, because it's not in our minds, it's outside of the mind, I do need to want to give it some color, because the color, I feel, gives it the reality of it being a real dream that has been kind of manifest, whether it be real or not. And you notice that this dream is about, it's called Stop Sleeping in My Head, Stop Swimming in My Head. There's supposed to be like a pool here, and there's these white people swimming in the pool. There's white people playing with a pool ball. There's white people taking a sunbathe, black people just sitting on the edge, some people diving. So the idea is that as African people, we tend to, without unconscious or conscious of it, I'm trying to make it conscious, have this reality that we live in a world where we constantly have white people swimming in our heads. And I've always felt like I didn't want white people swimming in my head. And so I'm trying to show that maybe if you realize that there's white people swimming in your head, you'll let this dream go. You'll stop dreaming this dream. You'll allow this dream to fade and not operate so I got to give it like a feeling that it is operating inside this person's head, but it's just a dream. And we don't have to let this kind of operation take control of us, like I feel so many people do. So I'm being pretty loose and free with the application of the paint, because I think that I've already, for me, a lot of times is getting the idea. If you get an idea of what I'm talking about, then I've reached what I wanted to reach. I didn't have to be as detailed and orientated as, making everything seem, photographically real, because I think in some ways that's a lot of work, and it takes away. You'll start looking at the realism more than the material idea of what I was trying to do. And that was all that was important for me, is the feeling that you're seeing something that I'm thinking about. And that doesn't necessarily have to be as accurate as possible. So I'm pretty much at this stage I might come back and outline this with some black, because I think I will, because that kind of adds to this painting, brings more black in, and it also maybe gives the outlines the dreaminess effect. I don't think I might have to do something back here, because I don't want the painting to feel like it's running off in the background, because it could. I want it to all seem like it's inside of the dream, the dream of reality. And so I'm going to leave that one alone. But like I said, I'm pretty close to this being kind of completed painting. And now let me show you the drawing. This is like I said, all my paintings come from a drawing. So this was the drawing. And I tried to get as close as I could to the drawing. But that's what I know I'm pretty finished, because I can see the drawing in the painting. All right, and it wasn't color, so I didn't actually have to do that. So this one you actually can't see, but you will see is a picture of some daisies, daffodils. I don't know exactly what you call them. But like I said, I painted this painting so long ago that I know I didn't paint it. I drew it so long ago that I felt like it was just an accomplishment for me to have this painting painted. Like I showed you the drawing, but now I have the time and the energy to actually finish the painting. And I probably need to come back with a more finer brush, because the lines on this one are a lot closer, and I don't want to overpaint. But as an artist, and I talk to a lot of young artists, I try to encourage them to keep going. And one thing I like about this painting is that it was a drawing that I did a long time, pretty much forgot about. But because I had this whole series in mind, the drawing fell back into, I went looking back over some of my old work and trying to come up with some ideas for this series. And I said, wow, this one kind of fits. And it's not even something, and I'll probably do that for the next year's series too. Is always try to bring something from the old work, because I believe that I'm not doing anything new. I'm doing things that I used to do over again. And, just perfecting that, that idea that I can still take an older idea and make a new idea of it. Next year, I already got a theme. I already got a series of paintings I'm going to do. That's another good thing, is to think of project about where you're going. As I've been working, this has been like what now, 8 months into this series. I'm at the last 3. I did about 11 of these paintings. And next year, I'm going to do a series called Bend Reality. high truth versus deep faith. And once I get a theme together, and I got some drawings already done, but once I get an idea and theme together, I really start thinking about finishing up these paintings because I'm getting so excited about the work that I'm going to do next year, or even start probably early end of this year, early next year. But it all is centered around like this growth of my thinking from this group of paintings. And the growth has been in this year. I've been using a lot of AI, for good or for bad, but it's taught me some things. And I realized that, like I've always realized about computers, is that a computer doesn't think for you. A computer gives you an ability to have it think faster than you. But you still have to be the one to tell it what to do. Give it the idea of what it needs to do. How do you move it forward? And I think for a lot of us, we need to consider that. Consider that idea. Consider what it might mean to move ourselves forward. Okay. And as a crafts person, you can always give yourself an idea of what that might look like. Where are you going through your artwork and or through your crafting? And like I said, artwork is not, our crafting is anything that you can do with your hands, anything that you can do with your mind, anything you can do with your feet, anything you can do with your whole body. So I've always been, I felt like an artist, but I've used my skill in a lot of different ways. I didn't always use it on paint. I didn't always use it on drawing. I've always been intrigued about using the computer. And, but these are the tools of today. These are the tools that I was, brought up in. I'm glad I was brought up in a time before computers though, because I think for a lot of people, what they draw is important. And I've always loved to draw. And I do that probably more than anything. Or it's also probably not show it as much as anything. But the art of drawing is ancient. And a computer will never be able to replace that. It might draw something, but it was told what to draw. A self-thinking computer, I don't know if that's even possible. It's a machine that was created. And if you create a machine that does its own thinking, it might decide that you're not even needed. And you gonna have to, if you create a computer that thinks, you're gonna have to let it know that you're its creator. And by harming me, you are actually killing yourself. It kind of goes back to the ancestors, though, you know, in a way, because if you didn't use your ancestors, if you didn't work with your ancestors to achieve what you want to do in life, and feel that you don't need your ancestors, I think you run into some real, dangerous territory, because now you think that your thinking about life is greater than theirs. And I'm sure that's part of the why the world is in the situation it's in today, because we don't respect our ancestors and the lessons they were trying to teach us. We just keep going on and on, thinking that, we are the computer that thinks for itself, and really not allowing any guidance to take place, which is foolish. It is foolish to think that you are the creator, and through you, there's nothing else matters. That's opposite of the way I think. I think that it's been through my mother, through my grandmother, through the ancestors, all the mothers that came before me. This is who I am. I cannot be anything without them. So I'm pretty much finished for today. I just kind of wanted to show you, this is called finishing touches. And I'm sure that I haven't totally finished, but I'm there. I'm getting there. I'm getting close. I'm getting real close. And I'm sure I'll have much more to do. I got a few things I want to clean up and move on from these pieces. I don't want to spend the rest of my life. That's one thing about art. You got to know when to quit. You got to know when to fold. When your cards have, you can't do more than what you already got in the deck. And I think I've always been real good at that. I've known my limitations, and I'm comfortable with them, and that helps. But you can see the little parrot. I got to clean up some stuff. I see the little parrot I got a little too loose with the parrot juice. But a parrot's supposed to look like it's living at sea. Okay. And I got to make that. I am going to put some white around, some black around that. I might even do it real loosely. I'm going to do some black around this dream state. Because it doesn't look like clouds to me, or dreaming clouds. And I know I'm running out of time, but I did kind of want to show you what I could do with just a little bit of black real quick. And see, once I come over this again with some black, with some white, it'll clear up a lot of this black, because I did kind of lay the black down pretty fast and heavy. And it might have been overdid it a little bit. And yeah, it does look like that. So I'm gonna have to come over, probably not tonight, maybe a little bit more. I got a few more minutes. I'm trying to stretch it out as much as I can, because it should still look a lot whiter. So this kind of grays out that black. Not so much overbearing. Which I didn't want. And I think this is going to be about it. Yeah. But like I said, I'm going to go over that again. So the black should just be like underneath. Should just be kind of setting underneath. Just to give it that appearance of a kind of a cloudy underneath kind of thing. But yeah, so this is AfricaOnTheMove.com. You're listening to The Roof is on Fire. My name is Namo Kofi Job. I will be giving a performance at the African American Museum on October 25th and 26th. Come on out if you can. Do your thing. Make sure that you remember Black August and the people that have our ancestors who live on today through Black August. We are the people that our ancestors are here for. And we should honor them and show dignity toward them in their lives. And I try to do that with my work. I try to do that with my expression. And I try to honor them each and every day in some type of dignity, because they truly are why I'm here today and why I put forward all the work and effort that I do. So it's in honor of them. It's in dignity of them. It's why I keep moving and keep doing what I do. So again, looking forward to seeing you next month in September. That'll be a very important month for me. I'll be turning 66. I don't know what the 66 years gonna bring. I got to make it there first. Once I get there, then we can talk about it. So come on back in September. I'll have a new theme, a new idea, working on probably on some new work. These will be finished. And we'll just be moving forward. I'll be talking about my next year's plans, I guess. Maybe I can show you some work from that. But remember, forward ever, backwards never. The roof is on fire. We don't need no water. Let that mother burn, baby, burn this thing down to the ground, okay? So peace, love, and power to the people, okay? Always, all right? Never let down, never look back. Always look forward. Your ancestors are with you. They walk beside you. They give you strength. They give you protection. They give you honor. Honor them back. Let's do this thing together.